Welcome. This is Ghana Tonight. We're live from our news hub here at Desawe Kanda. Also live on TV Ghana on Facebook, DSTV channel 279, all across the world on 3news.com. I am Alfred Ocansey. Tonight, the Civil and Local Government Staff Association of Ghana, CLOGSAG, breaks ranks. They've agreed with the Finance Ministry on its newly proposed alternative to the Domestic Debt Exchange Program. What does a divided labor front mean for the program? Stay with us. There's a lot more into this. We'll get into a report on the state of the media in Ghana. Reveals, among other things, that state actors, including political appointees and the police, are the worst perpetrators of attacks on journalists. We'll delve into the details and assess the role of the media in development. And the National Media Commission Executive Secretary is our guest tonight. Also, allegations of extortion rock the National Health Insurance Scheme. Our sector minister laments over the development which he wants probed. But what are the real issues confronting the service providers? Stay with us. We'll get into all of that. And we also want to hear from you. There are a lot of you with experiences and issues with extortion in the National Health Insurance Scheme, in that some of the services that you're not supposed to pay for, some health facilities demand that you pay for them. Share it with us. We're very interactive tonight. The hashtag is Ghana Tonight on Facebook and Twitter. Let's get talking. Well, let's settle for Ghana Briefs. Chairman of the National Peace Council says concerns that the National Peace Council is adamant in quickly responding to issues of national peace and security are false. According to him, the Peace Council currently has 225 cases it is sitting on. He urges the public to be mindful in insulting the council because none of them are paid to do the job.
We get to Parliament, we see all the arguments. After the people take these statements that are made by political leaders, expand it, and gradually begin to act on these things. We're gradually moving into a state where if we don't deal with this whole issue, we're going to create chaos for this country.
Health Minister Kweku Agyeman-Mano has raised concerns over what he says is extortion by some service providers under the National Health Insurance Scheme. He wants victims to petition committees set up to investigate such cases for culprits to be prosecuted.
We all know that maternal care is for free. Health insurance pays for it. So why will you charge people money when they come to your hospital to deliver babies? And when it happens that way, the facility is just embarrassing government.
The Energy Minister, Dr. Matthew Poku-Prempeh, has justified the increment in tariffs in order to make the electricity company viable. The sector minister made the observation when he joined the ECG task force in its month-long debt recovery.
Last year and this year, everything has increased. Your house rent has increased, your food cost has increased, your transportation cost has increased. So how could ECG have functioned within that period without increasing tariffs? So we all have to understand that without energy, there is no economy.
The National Democratic Congress, NDC, has written to the Council of State to reconsider its advice to President Akufo-Addo concerning two of the three recently sworn-in members of the Electoral Commission of Ghana. The NDC adduced evidence that Dr. Peter Piahene and Hajia Salima Ahmed Tijani have deep roots within the New Patriotic Party and cannot guarantee the neutrality and impartiality of Ghana's electoral management body. The founder of Chalewote Street Art Festival, Manche Ayikwe, is claiming ownership of the sample on Drake's Calling My Name track of his 2022 Honestly Nevermind album, following a suit by Ghanaian rapper Obrafo. The sample is found at 0:53 seconds of Drake's tune, where it transitions into a house music vibe, sending the song into a different type of ambience compared to its initial trajectory. Killer Cut Blood is the chant heard multiple times.
portfolio and then the cash flow that we're getting from the coupon rate that government offered, we'll be able to meet our requirements.
Oh, so you will get your cash flow in 250 million.
Plus our investment portfolio that we've done, what will come in 2023, 2024, up to 2028, we don't have any problem with cash flow. We've done all the simulations, including the worst scenario, and we are okay.
You are okay?
Yes.
Doc, so is it fair to say that...
So it will depend on the investment portfolio of every scheme. But we, based upon our investment portfolio and what we're getting as coupon rates, we are okay from 2023 to 2028. That's if government would not renege on the agreements made so far.
That's Dr. Isaac Bampuado. He is the Executive Secretary of the Civil and Local Government Staff Association of Ghana, CLOCSAG. They have agreed to the alternative offer that government is giving to labor so as to help government to reduce the debt burden, because consistently the finance minister says we shouldn't call this a second phase of a domestic debt exchange program or a restructuring of the remaining part of the domestic debt. So government says it needs help from the various stakeholders to reduce the debt burden. Well, guess what? The UTAG has rejected this. TUC, the mother union body, has also rejected this. But just less than 24 hours ago, CLOCSAG, Civil and Local Government Staff Association, have actually accepted this new deal based on their own assessment, which they say is going to help them. But there's the if clause there. That's what we had Dr. Isaac Bampuado end there, that if government does not renege on its promise to pay, that's the catch. Because there's been so many promises that have been broken when it comes to payment of matured coupons, especially to, for instance, pension bond holders and other individual bond holders as well. That should be a lesson for the CLOCSAG people. But guess what? This is what they have agreed to. Here's what we see so far. Exchanging treasury bonds. This is the alternative offer that government is pitching to the pension fund. Exchanging of the ESLA bonds, because some pension funds have been invested in treasury bonds, ESLA bonds, and the Dachi bonds as well. The new bonds which government is offering will be more liquid. Their government, in fact, the finance ministry is promising that there's going to be a maturity period of 4 to 5 years, and that average coupon rate of 18.5 per what CLOCSAG is telling us now, that will be increased to about 20% as against the current 18.5 that we're seeing. So this is just a fraction of the details that we saw in a leaked letter by the finance ministry to the labor unions to convince them to sign up to the help. We say help because this is what the finance minister said. He said that they need help. Okay, he's quoted in that letter that was signed by him, indicating, quote, what we are doing is working with stakeholders on how they can further help government to reduce high debt distress and unsustainable debt obligations in support of Ghana's economic recovery program. This is in a letter, paragraph 3 of the letter that the finance ministry issued, clarifying the fact that there's no second round of domestic debt exchange program. So the catchword there is help. Government says it needs help to reduce the debt burden. That's what they've done right now. What we are seeing, and take a look at this. This is the current, as we speak, as of September 2022, the domestic debt holders, okay? As of September 2022, this pie chart sort of gives a clear indication of Ghana's domestic public debt holdings, as in the various institutions that hold the debts, the domestic debts of government. Insurance companies in there, you see about 0.9%, rural banks 1.4%, pension funds make up 6% as at September 2022 of the domestic debt. Pension funds, that's what you see there, 6%. We have SNIT. SNIT has also invested in some government instruments. You see it there. And commercial banks hold a chunk of the domestic debt, about 33% of the total domestic debt. And already that has been restructured under domestic debt exchange program. So the commercial banks are hoping, and in fact the insurance companies as well, are hoping that this Financial Stability Fund of 15 billion cedis will cushion them against the impact of the DDEP, which obviously we know that is going to be enough for them. And so the commercial banks are locked up in various meetings thinking about how to navigate through these difficult times that they have ahead of them. A number of them, from what we do know, have put a freeze on loans. A number of them are not advancing loans to the private sector. Mortgages have also been frozen. So it's a lot that's happening in the commercial bank space in this country. But this is how it looks like right now. But take a look at this as well. In what you saw in percentage terms in the pie chart earlier, this is the figurative terms as we see it. So, for instance, with the pension funds that we saw, about 6%, if you translate it into figures, actually, the pension funds is about 10.88 billion of the domestic debt. Rural banks hold about 2.54 billion, and the commercial banks see that, 59.9 billion. That has been restructured, and firms and institutions, 45.4 billion, and then you have foreign investors and so on. So the focus for this new approach that government is seeking to reduce the domestic debt is the pension funds, that 10.88 billion, which was excluded from the first round of the domestic debt exchange program. What we're learning now is what CLOCSAG has agreed to. But how is that going to impact on the consolidated labor front that they had in rejecting pension funds being added to the first round of the domestic debt exchange program? That's our conversation tonight. Austin Game is a labor expert. He joins us. We'll also hear from Dr. Isaac Bampuado himself, explaining further what CLOCSAG took into consideration in deciding on this. But coming up right after this quick break, the allegations of extortion have also rocked the National Health Insurance Scheme as the sector minister laments over the development, which he once probed. But what are the real issues confronting the service providers? Stay with us. We'll get into all of that right after this quick break. We'll be back shortly. Gentlemen, we're going to demonstrate to you the superior properties of Flamingo paint as compared to other paint brands on the market. We take equal quantities of Flamingo paint and this ordinary paint. We then dilute them with water. And now, let the test begin. The gentleman on the left is going to apply the ordinary paint, and the gentleman on my right will use the Flamingo superior paint. As you can clearly see, Flamingo has the obvious better hiding. Furthermore, Flamingo has painted a much larger area. You know, one bucket of Flamingo paint is equal to several buckets of any other paint brand on the market. Flamingo paint is made with superior formulation to give superior durability, superior hiding, superior coverage. Flamingo paint, simply superior.
Everybody knows Acrobato. And if you know Acrobato, it means you know Endpoint Homeopathic Clinic. Endpoint Homeopathic Clinic is my pillar. Let's hear what others are saying about Endpoint Homeopathic Clinic. Who will be careful Endpoint one?
Just na me ankasa me period na say problems wom ntina ma wo ho idea ma me papa just na nya asem ketewa na me coin point no mo hwe me mogam no mo hwe bibia na so mo medro a me fire no ene ma won kra me nu hofro kwa na me kwan mu a eba head everything yourself me ma me no adwodwo eda ho a wontumi nante ene ne ko endpoint o mama nu a ene ne ho idea watimi asori anante.
That's endpoint for you. Hello. Hey, ohwehwe what che okay a free bra wo di endpoint wa dance am me call you no me Johnson se man enkoyie and person na my nyina na magina sebema na me be fie for there e ho na nyina jaresa. You heard everything. I have secret. Endpoint is my secret. Endpoint Homeopathic Clinic. I'm free.
Die agedwedien krato yatum. At long last, Blue Jays Vodka makes a bummer kit. Blue Jays Vodka makes Numbi a fine.
This look, the guys are chilling with Blue Jays Vodka mix.
Wow! Numbi a tasty.
Can we join you guys? We are all single.
James Vodka Mix. Emuye de. Taste ne kama. Enjoy the unique taste of Blue Jeans Vodka Mix. Blue Jeans Vodka Mix. Numbi. Eye fine.
Blue Jeans Vodka Mix. Blue Jeans Vodka Mix.
Numune nyansem. Wonton manimpa woni mfie don wotwe. Ensesa apemfo no.
We are on a mission promoting access to quality health and education through the power of our media space.
For the livers, forever.
Since 2014, we have made great impact. TV3 mission now drives Ghana's quest to break barriers and provide access to inclusive and quality girls' education. Together with women's maternal health services, our mission to address the needs of the socially excluded has won the admiration of many. Indeed, TV3 Mission gets you the results. Mission is live on TV3 News 360 every Saturday and Sunday. Supported by Star Ghana Foundation, with thanks to Foreign Commonwealth and Development Office.
Last year was massive. This year, it will be the bomb. Tour du Ghana, the ultimate cycling event in the sports calendar, happening on the 20th and 21st of May 2023. Confirm your participation. Registration fee is 200 Ghana cedis for single riders, while 100 Ghana cedis goes for clubs with 10 riders or more. Your registration comes with personal accident cover, accommodation, feeding, and transportation. Start point of the tour is from the West Hills Mall, SCC to the Takrady Mall, and from Takrady to the Cape Coast Chapel Square. For more details, contact 0244 893758 or 0546 063 747. Tour du Ghana, happening on the 20th and 21st of May 2023. Be part of the excitement.
You're welcome back. This is Ghana Tonight. Health Minister Kwakwa Meno has bemoaned what he describes as extortion of patients by health facilities under the guise of the National Health Insurance bills. Speaking at the opening of a three-day 2023 First Senior Managers of Ghana Health Service meeting in Kumasi, Minister admitted the delays in paying of National Health Insurance claims, but actually noted it was not on the basis of that people, in fact, some health facilities extort money from vulnerable persons, especially in the current economy. Take a look.
Patients who apparently, because of which people that government set up health insurance, are not getting the full benefit of health insurance. Government itself has banned co-payment, don't collect monies from patients unnecessarily. There are certain diseases that health insurance doesn't cover. If you're doing that treatment, then you are charging them money. That is understandable. But basic things, hernia, CS, that is all on the health insurance, how do I call it, benefit package. Why do you charge patients for that? We all know that maternal care is for free. Health insurance pays for it. So why will you charge people money when they come to your hospital to deliver babies? And when it happens that way, the facility is just embarrassing government. We have set up committees, they are working, but patients like normal Ghanaians, when we get a blunt of people, we don't come out to try to complain. When you talk to them, they don't want to talk to you. So you're not getting people who are petitioning so much to us. They just complain on the sides, and they are not ready to come forward to give evidence and things like that. We have a software that even gets to patients who are self-insurance registered to find out if claims that hospitals are bringing to us are actual claims. So we are working on all these things. But the normal Ghanaian, you know how we are like. You know, we have challenges until we start prosecuting some of them. These things become difficult.
Health Minister talking about a number of things, but Dr. Kwame Esiedu Sapong is a pharmacist and a fellow at the Center for Democratic Development, CDD Ghana. Dr. Esiedu Sapong, thank you so much for connecting with us on Zoom. You heard the minister there lamenting about the co-payment, or what we call extortion on the part of some health facilities, having people to pay for services under the health insurance scheme. What has given room to this growing fraudulent activity?
Well, good evening. It's an interesting. The first thing I would want to say is, it's rather not strange that the very person we pay, because remember, we pay the executive because we are taxpayers. The very person we pay to solve the problem is part of the lamenters of the problem. That, for me, is key, because if the minister is saying that, well, I pay cash when I access help in Ghana because of all the problems, it's like we've given up. It's like I cannot solve it because this is the person who's supposed to solve it. And he's suddenly telling us, well, you know what? I just pay cash to save myself the trouble. That, for me, is the crux of the matter. Are we really prepared to tackle this problem?
I see. And that question leads to the next issue. Have you seen any specific, as it were, right interventions to correct this? Because you're questioning the preparedness to address this problem.
No, the point is that, do we really understand the problem? It's very easy for you to say, oh, providers, i.e. hospitals, pharmacies, labs, are extorting. But you need to get to the bottom of a number of issues. The first thing is, what is the NHIS paying? Are they paying in time in line with their contractual obligations? What is the current inflation rate? What is the exchange rate fluctuation? What are bank rates? And how do these impact on their providers' cash flow? That's one thing you have to realize. So if you are going to pay someone 6 to 9 months after they've provided a service, and the city is going to depreciate over that period by about 40, 50%, and you know that 75 to 80% of Ghana's medicine supply chain is dollar indexed, whether you like it or not, because only 30% of our medicines are manufactured in Ghana.
Right.
But out of those 30% that are manufactured in Ghana, 80% of the raw materials for that manufacture is imported as well. So when you index all that, you realize that there's a huge dependency on Forex for the pharmaceutical supply chain.
Right.
And I'm using the pharmaceutical supply chain as an example because it permeates into the hospitals because they supply medicines, they buy medicines, they buy raw materials, they buy reagents. All of these things are affected by the supply chain. Then the next thing you have to look at is, what is the payment structure, i.e. the NHIS drug tariff? How much do they pay for the drugs that suppliers are supplying, and what is the market price for those products? And the easiest way as journalists to check it is, if you go to your pharmacy and you say you wanted to buy, say, amoxicillin for a 7-day course, how much would that prescription cost you? And check the NHIS formulary, because it's a live formulary and it's open, and see how much they are paying that same person to supply with a 7-day course of that same amoxicillin. You can do that for 10 products and you can find an average. You'd realize that there is a disparity of about 67% between what the NHIS reimburses service providers and what the market prices are. So if you then factor that in and put it into a 9 months, 6 to 9 months payment framework, you realize that a lot of these providers would end up having to say someone has to meet or bridge the gap between the market price and the NHIS price. That is reality. However, one thing I cannot explain, and I'll not hold brief for any provider, is for services that have been explicitly paid for, like surgeries and other things, by the NHS and are being recharged to the patient. That is double charging. I can see a place where you say the cost of the surgery paid by the NHS is lower than the cost of procurement of the services to provide that surgery, and therefore there must be a bridge. And that is why I use the pharmacy supply chain to make that example. That is reality. But if there's double charging, then the other question I ask is, why is the minister who we pay to solve these problems lamenting to us? Can modalities be put in place to fix this?
You see, and in fact, the lamentations are in twofold. Apart from the extortion that you speak to quite clearly, that the ministry has the responsibility to address it, he is also concerned that the public, in his view, is not taking advantage of the complaints unit to report cases of extortion. And so, I mean, I look at this, is the public to blame for this, or the health insurance also hasn't created enough awareness about this particular unit or the process of complaint if they suspect that, or we suspect that we have been a victim of extortion by some health facilities?
It's an interesting question. You see, sometimes people forget who we are. As a health provider, one thing I was taught all through my education was that nobody comes to me because they want to. They come to me because they have to. And there's a key distinction. Human beings want to exercise their right to choose. I want to go to the cinema. I want to go to the restaurant. I want to go to the nightclub. Human beings don't want to be compelled. And so, if you work in healthcare, you have to realize that anyone coming to you is coming because they find themselves in a situation of bother. That person is more interested in getting themselves out of the situation of bother by either getting a cure, having a proper diagnosis, and having a treatment plan that keeps them well, are less interested in going to report to make your system more efficient. This has been researched globally. So, if you want the people to provide you with the information you need to improve the system, you first and foremost have to make the journey through the system convenient. The NHS is not making that journey convenient. Why are they not? If even the top-notch person is having to pay cash because he cannot be bothered with all the bottlenecks, how can you expect Joe Blocks on the street to go through the bottlenecks when their priority is their healthcare? It's not going to happen. So we need to look at this from a holistic standpoint and say, what are the pain points for the users? What are the pain points for the providers? And what can we do to fix these pain points? Until then, we would continue lamenting.
Dr. Sapong, and finally, before I let you go, and this particular one, would you say that the public also, I mean, beyond the health insurance itself's responsibility, what should the public also do to, as it were, complement this? Because for as long as people don't report, the authority obviously wouldn't know that there's some extortion that has taken place in one facility or the other. Is it not?
Yes, in a way it's true. Because look at it from the point of police. The police have to be proactive in investigating crime. But it's also incumbent on the public to report crime. Because a lot of the time, if you don't report crime, the police is not even aware that the crime has been committed. So yes, it has to be reported. But then you have to then piggyback and go to what I said, that unlike the classical crime scene, these people are being compelled to seek health care because they are unwell. and no human being wants to be compelled. So you cannot apply the classical models of human reporting to healthcare. It's not been done anywhere, and it's not going to succeed in Ghana. So much as he may be right that until there are reports, they will struggle to act, he's wrong in thinking just by admonishing the general public, they'll start reporting. Because at the point where they seek healthcare, especially in a country like Ghana, where we do not have a health system that is aimed at keeping people well, we have a health system that is aimed at curing people. And often at that time, the people are very stressed, their families are very stressed, and anything you ask of them, whether they have it or not, they'll find a way of providing it. Okay. At that point, reporting is not a priority, and that is what we need to fix.
We'll see. And I thank you for your thoughts, Sois, and we hope that these measures are taken immediately to also save the public from being victims of extortion. I thank you so much for your thoughts on this. Really appreciate this and the input that you've helped us with this evening. And that's Dr. Kwame Sapong. He's a fellow at the Center for Democratic Development, CDD, in health. He's a pharmacist as well. But going to the next, the Civil and Local Government Staff Association of Ghana, that's CLOCSAG, said fears of broken ranks and agreed with the Finance Ministry on its newly proposed alternative to the Domestic Debt Exchange Program. What does a divided labor front mean for the program? We will get into that shortly. And keep in mind the basis that I laid earlier on Reality Check. While the Trade Union Congress and other labor unions are opposed to the newly proposed alternative to the government domestic debt exchange program, or as the Finance Ministry put it, that the help that they are seeking from the stakeholders to reduce the government's debt burden, the Civil and Local Government Staff Association of Ghana, that's CLOCSAG, is in favor of the deal. Now, with a split labor front, as things appear, how will things pan out? Dr. Isaac Bampoado is Executive Secretary of the Civil and Local Government Staff Association of Ghana. You know, let's take a look at that video. He granted an interview to my colleague, Daniel Opoko, our Chief Labor Correspondent on this. He's joining us on the telephone a bit, but take a look.
Portfolio and then the cash flow that we're getting from the coupon rate that government offered, we'll be able to meet our requirements.
Oh, so you will get your cash flow in 250 million.
Plus our investment portfolio that we've done. What will come in 2023, 2024, up to 2028, we don't have any problem with cash flow. We've done all the simulations, including the worst scenario, and we are okay.
You are okay?
Yes.
Doc, so is it fair to say that...
So it will be it will depend on the investment portfolio of every scheme. But we, based upon our investment portfolio and what we're getting as coupon rate, we are okay from 2023 to 2028. That's if government would not renege on the agreements made so far.
Then my understanding is that you are staying off organized labor.
This is not organized, staying off organized labor. Every scheme has got its investment portfolio. You know, the investment portfolios of the schemes are not the same. So it's for every scheme to study the document that has come from Ministry of Finance and see whether it will meet their requirements. We have studied it, and then we think from 2023 to 2028 we will not have any cash flow problems. We will be able to meet all our retirement benefits to our people.
That's Dr. Isaac Bampoado. He is Executive Secretary of the Civil and Local Government Staff Association of Ghana. Thankfully, he's joined us on the telephone. Austin Gama is a labor expert as well. We would have him adjust his Zoom, bring the screen down a bit for me, Mr. Game. But let me start off with you, Dr. Isaac Bampoado. So in effect, you're saying that CLOCSAG, you're going to allow the pension funds of your members to be part of the help that the Finance Ministry is asking that you stakeholders give to them to reduce the country's debt burden, correct?
Like I said, yes, we were briefed by the Ministry of Finance, that's the Board of Trustees of our scheme. And they followed up with a proposal. And we've done our analysis on the proposal. And that satisfies our cash flow for the next 5 years. So we are okay. That's the health pension occupational pension scheme. We are okay.
I see. But what detail did the Finance Ministry give you? Because you keep talking about the detail you were giving by the Finance Ministry. What did they give to you based on the assessment of which you have decided now that you want to be part of the help?
Well, in totality, they're talking of an average of about 21% coupon rate.
Okay.
Giving us a 5% initial coupon rate to 8%, and then it culminates into 21% on the whole rate. So we have done our cash flow analysis, and we are satisfied.
Let's see.
That is to meet our needs.
Right. So let me bring in Mr. Osengame. Mr. Game, so the concern here is this, that CLOGSAG, based on their own assessment, right, they've taken a decision that this deal is going to help them. This is contrary to the position that the other labor unions, including the TUC, have taken about this new deal, rejecting it. So how is this going to impact on the labor front's own consolidated position about matters like this?
Thank you, Alfred. Well, I do not think that it will have any damaging effects. CLOGSAG is a body on its own. They join organized labor, and there's a huge world of a difference between belonging to organized labor, going to a joint meeting for a common purpose, and also affiliating to the Trades Union Congress. And so they are at liberty. The Constitution, the law provides that opportunity for anybody to do such, except that I'm sure they have studied, as they've said, carefully, maybe call some material person to give them assurance. And that's maybe the reason why they are representing the interests of their members with that huge assurance on the basis of all that's going on so far. So it will not have any damaging effect on the rest of the organized labor people like UTAG, like the health people, and those affiliated to the TUC wanted to go solely to fight their cause. They have studied, I'm sure, and they are not satisfied that it may help them. These people have studied it and they are satisfied it will help them. So that's just what it is.
Okay, so initially when the domestic debt exchange program was taking place sometime last year, the last quarter, all labor unions, including CLOGSAG, were of one position. And the likes of you assessed the consolidated labor position as one of the major strengths that prevented government from having its way or getting pension funds to be included in the domestic debt exchange program. This time around, we have one labor union agreeing and a number of them saying no. I mean, in terms of labor dynamics, and you're vexed in this, how will this impact on their own engagements going forward?
Well, I pray that in the next few years, as he himself just said, Dr. Bampo just said, that he hopes that the Minister of Finance, and for that matter, government, will not renege on the promise was contained in the portfolio submitted to them. Once that is done, then he will have to fight, his solo efforts with his members, and that's very critical. Generally speaking, unions operate in solidarity. Even if you don't understand fully, you go along, you tag along, and then seek further understanding. That's how normally unions operate. But this is a huge difference, and this is about pension, and it's a little bit more vulnerable issue than traditionally fighting for an increase in pay. And so I'm sure they've considered several things. But generally speaking, let me say that because of the very numbers that are jointly holding on together, it will still have tremendous effect on government if they so decide to take their pound of flesh into action.
I see. Dr. Isaac Bampuado, so it all boils down to trust, is it not? And that's what Mr. Osingame is saying. Considering what we've seen with, for instance, the pension bond holders and others who were promised their coupons being paid at a particular date and that promise wasn't fulfilled, what did the finance ministry give you to give you enough basis to trust their offering to you that when the time is due, they will pay as promised?
Going to go by it and not renege on it, then fine. Then but should they renege on these agreements that is done, then it's a different ballgame.
I see, and then that's actually the issue that I'm asking about, the specific assurances that they gave you, because your members, I assume, you're saying that you have the backing of your members. So what's the assurance, really?
Yeah, but the assurance we got to them, we got from them that we're going to sign another their proposal. That means an MOU will be signed, committing government to these new proposals.
I see, but you have the backing of your members on this decision?
Of course, we have a whole technical team that has looked at this thing, and of course, yes, we are doing things in their interest, in the best of their interest. And if it's not good, we will not accept it. The most important thing is that when the pensioner is going on retirement, at the time of retirement, he gets his full pension. And that's why I'm saying that satisfies our cash flow needs. Because anytime any pensioner is going on retirement, we'll be able to pay fully.
I see. Thank you. But, Mr. Game, I understand tomorrow there's going to be an emergency meeting of all the labor unions. Clocksack say they will be there. If you're in a position to speak to them, as in how to forge ahead going forward, regardless of what's happened with Clocksack's decision, what would that be?
Well, to be very honest with you, I'm pretty sure, knowing the caliber of people that in the organized labor fold, they might have consulted extensively and maybe some actuarial advice and other pension experts. I form part of the team that wrote the pension scheme, and I know how very difficult it is to embark upon an exchange program like this. And we all can see how government is suffocating as a result of this thing going on. And therefore, a lot of carefulness, a lot of careful thoughts will have to be put in. I do not envy CLOSAC. They are representing their members. They will be there, but they can't speak for organized labor. They can only express their views that they have accepted it on the merit of ABCD. But if organized labor is not, they are not convinced that this should be a genuine something, it's their right also to reject it. And the consequences we will all live with it. But I think it's a very healthy thing they are trying to do. I will not say it's a bad idea, except that they have to be very cautious and be assured, because we have an example in the country where those people whose coupons are due now are unable to have it redeemed, perhaps because the cash flow of government itself is not that good enough. But let's give the benefit of the doubt, whatever they might have seen. But if they go to the meeting tomorrow, they should just speak in their corner and do not incur the wrath of the other people.
Mr. Game, I thank you, as always. Thank you for your thoughts.
I'm most grateful.
Osingame is a labor expert, but coming up next, a report on the state of the media in Ghana reveals, amongst other things, that state actors, including political appointees and the Ghana Police Service, are the worst perpetrators of the attacks on journalists. We'll delve into the details and assess the role of the media in development shortly. Let's get into the details of this report by the Department of Communication Studies at the University of Ghana, revealing a number of things. And I'm going to put a few on the screen right now so you follow me quite closely. This is the State of the Media in Ghana report that state actors, including political appointees and the police, are the worst perpetrators of attacks on journalists. Among the other findings, we see the thematic areas of this report being financial viability of the media, working conditions in the Ghanaian media, safety of journalists, media and national development, media ownership and regulation, professional practice, and training and capacity building, as we see there. And let's take a look at the next one. See that the financial viability of the media was one key area of this report. Now, this is one of the key findings. Many media organizations are not profitable. They only break even, and it actually became worse because of this economic crisis that we find ourselves in, and financial viability of many media organizations is threatened by the current economic crisis, and media in Ghana are creatively exploring new business modules to stay alive. And digital technologies are fast-changing media financing modules in Ghana. And that's a real development we're faced with. Also, digital media now a major source of income in the Ghanaian media space. And industry saturation is one of the biggest threats to media financing or the finances of media organizations. In terms of the working conditions in the Ghanaian media, recruitment into the Ghanaian media is generally, according to this report, not transparent. Many people working in the media do not have contracts. There are no established structures for promotion in most media organizations. Salaries in the media, according to this report, woefully low. Some employees work long months without pay. And they sampled a number of media houses, not just any specific one. Also, most media employees have no healthcare support and no counseling service for workers when needed in most media organizations. And then also, that's another part of the key findings we see, the safety of journalists, which has been a consistent issue on the show. There's a growing sense of insecurity among journalists in Ghana. Violations of journalist safety are quite common in the country. And guess what? Male journalists are more at risk of attack than females. Investigative journalists are the most at risk of attacks as well. And state actors, including political appointees and the Ghana Police Service, some personnel are the worst perpetrators of attacks on journalists. And journalists feel that law enforcement agencies and the judiciary do little to protect safety of journalists. That's also captured in there. And in fact, this aspect as well of the key findings in this report, media and national development, Ghana has elaborate constitutional provisions to support the premise of media for development. Journalists and media organizations have a positive disposition towards the promise of media for development. There is considerable interest in covering development issues, and you can see that quite clearly here at Media General, consistently highlighting the issues of development in the rural communities in this country. You watch the news and the mission segment and so on. This is what we're committed to here at Media General. But journalists acknowledge deficits in the media performance relative to its potential to engender national development. So the final one is that the coverage of development issues is constrained by limited funding and access to credible sources as well. Professor Aubrey Gajepo is former dean of the School of Communication and Information Studies at the University of Ghana. She spoke about the details of this report. Take a look.
The working conditions of journalists is very, very poor, and it makes the practice of journalism even more precarious than you would think it should be. And I really do think that media owners and media managers must be engaged on this very critical issue. Of concern is the politicization in media ownership and the fact that it's opaque, it's not transparent. And so we really don't know who is behind some of the media that we consume.
Let's stay a bit further on this. Mr. George Sapong is the Executive Secretary of the National Media Commission. the regulator of the space. Mr. Sapong, thank you so much for connecting with us on Ghana Tonight. First off, let's start off with the issue of development, because this report talks about the media, the coverage of development issues constrained by limited funding and access to credible sources. You've seen this report. What's your take on this particular one?
Yes, I have. The report was launched today. We've not had time to digest it fully, but we are all familiar with the highlight.
I see, but okay, and that's fair. But at least under the issues of media ownership and regulation, it talks, for instance, about media pluralism not necessarily serving the interest of the public because media ownership is shrouded in opacity. Does this really reflect the reality from the regulator's perspective?
First of all, we need to conceptualize development with some degree of clarity to be sure what we are talking about. Development of a democratic process. Are we talking about infrastructure development? And each area that we focus on will have some implications on the conclusions that we reach. I think that all of us would agree that in terms of the development of our democracy, human rights, the rule of law, I would think that the media has done considerably well. But like every good teacher would say, there's still room for improvement. If you are talking about infrastructure development, there's a sense in which we could say, yes, we have made some contributions. But if you measure that against how much time we devote to political controversies, you may come to the conclusion that, again, we need to do a little more. If you are talking about, say, human rights generally, questions about diversity and issues of a pluralistic society and how we treat each other, you may come to the conclusion that the media need to perhaps have a more nuanced understanding of human rights to be able to appreciate the complexity of the diversities involved in our pursuit of human rights. So it depends on how you conceptualize the question of development.
I see, and I'm looking at the details of this of the report, and permit me, it talk about the ownership aspect and how it impacts on the development reporting. Would you agree with that conclusion of the status of media ownership being opaque?
First of all, we need to have a deeper understanding of the issues at stake. On one hand, we speak of opacity. On the other hand, we speak of concentration in a few hands. If it is opaque, then we don't know much about it. But if we argue that it is concentrated in a few hands, then it means we know the owners, which means that we have understanding of who has ownership. So that is one area that we hope to dig deeper into the concerns there to be able to deconstruct exactly what the issues are, to be able to follow the recommendations. Our commitment is that diversity and pluralism are non-negotiable virtues in media, and therefore any information that hints towards concentration and antitrust behavior requires regulatory attention.
I see, but is the current regime for broadcast regulation allowing considerable power and influence to those whose conduct actually the media is supposed to be checking? I mean, this is one of the details of this report.
I think the point the report seeks to make is the allegation that there is considerable political ownership of media outlets, and that if that allegation is true, then the politicians control all access to media. And to that extent, the media are very unlikely to be able to hold them to account, because the people who own the media are the ones that the media are supposed to hold to account.
I see, but an issue of ethics as well, and I think we put that slide on the screen not too long ago. The report says ethical breaches such as one-sided reportage, failure to verify news, were major challenges to professional practice. It's captured in there. Is this indeed a major challenge from where the regulator's perspective, and how often do you receive complaints about this particular issue of the ethical breaches? Mr. Sapong.
It definitely is a very major challenge. And there is a sense in which that is related to the question of ownership that the report raises that we need to get into. Our own media monitoring reports at the National Media Commission suggest that there is considerable relationship between ownership and media salience, to the extent that media houses that are owned by known politicians tend to reflect the perspectives only or mainly of those politicians.
I see. But realistically, I mean, can anything be done practically to address politicians or politically exposed persons owning media houses in this country?
Certainly, a lot can be done. If the policy says that politically exposed people cannot own media, that is what it is, and one would have to enforce it. But beyond that, I have always said that what is needed is for all of us to set very clear standards that everybody must follow, so that even if old Nick, the devil himself, owned media in Ghana, he would still have to comply with the rules. So we need to work towards very transparent regulatory systems that bind everybody, whether politician or not, so that together we can secure a media ecosystem that is fair.
I see. Right. But currently, tell me the position of the law, the position of the law now. Does the law prevent politicians or politically exposed persons from owning media houses? The reason why this is captured as a problem in this report?
Not that I'm aware of. First of all, we need to recognize that there is some kind of challenge with the state of the law that all of us think needs to be addressed. For us from the National Media Commission, that was why we put together LI 2224 on content standards in electronic communications, and we thought that that law would have helped to address some of these issues.
And maybe very quickly before I let you go, are there any specific areas, Mr. Sapon, you, the NCA, that's the NMC, I beg your pardon, as a regulator, would need some strengthening or some support to make you a bit more efficient than you are now?
Well, the Supreme Court disagreed with us and therefore shut it down. We still think that the court ought to have looked at it more closely within the context of the evolution of the media. We did not have that from the court, but that is the apex court of the land, and they have spoken. So there's very little one can do within the context of that.
Anyway, but we thank you very much for your time. Appreciate your thoughts on this. And this report, the details of it will serialize in subsequent conversations, but you'll find the full report on 3news.com as well for your perusal. But thank you so much for staying with us here on Ghana Tonight. Mr. George Sapong, Executive Secretary of the National Media Commission. Appreciate your time. On behalf of the rest of the team, thank you. You have a good night. I am Alfred Ocansey. Join us same time tomorrow.
Ghana Tonight is brought to you by Flamingo Paint. Superior durability, superior hiding, superior coverage, simply superior.